If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be standing in a courtroom, clutching a manila envelope of divorce papers with my daughter's crayon drawings shoved inside for comfort, I probably would have laughed. Not because it was funny, but because denial has a way of making you think you're untouchable, like the chaos you hear about in other people's marriages could never happen to you. That your home, your life, your love story is different. I met Travis when I was 24 and still thought margaritas and potential were all a relationship needed to survive. He was charming, that kind of laid-back Southern guy who made you feel seen with a single glance. He worked in construction, came from a big family in Kentucky, and knew how to dance, like really dance. At our first wedding, we did a two-step to Eric Church, and I swore I'd found the love of my life. For a while, it felt like I had. He held my hand during my pregnancy with Ava. Painted her nursery yellow even though he hated the color because I told him it made me feel hopeful. He even cried when she was born, cried like the man I believed would protect us forever. But slowly, like a slow leak in a tire, the Travis I married began to deflate. It wasn't one big thing at first, just absence. He'd come home late, mutter something about long days and dealing with idiots, and fall asleep with the TV on. He stopped asking how I was, then stopped answering when I asked about him. We started communicating through passive sighs and closed doors. Then came the drinking. At first just a few beers after work, then weekend benders that left him reeking and short-tempered. And the phone? Always face down. Always silent. Still, I stayed. Because I told myself he was stressed. Because I didn't want Ava to grow up in a broken home. Because I thought love was supposed to hurt a little. But then I found the messages. They weren't even well hidden. A string of flirtatious texts from a woman named Marissa, one of his clients, apparently, talking about how last night still makes me blush and when are we going away again? I stared at the screen for so long, I thought my heart might stop beating. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He barely flinched. "You've been impossible to live with," he said coldly, like I'd forced him into another woman's bed. "You don't laugh anymore. You're always tired. Maybe if you put some effort into being a wife." I slapped him. Not hard, but hard enough to shut him up. That night, I packed a bag for Ava and me and drove to my sister's house, where I spent 3 nights crying on a pull-out sofa while Ava asked if Daddy was coming too. I told her no. I told her Mommy needed space. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I'd actually leave him for good. I tried counseling. He showed up to one session, scoffed when the therapist asked about accountability, and never returned. So I filed. And on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, I found myself in a fluorescent-lit courtroom, standing across from a man I had once trusted with my whole soul. I thought I'd feel victorious, empowered. But all I felt was empty. He wore a smug expression like it was a tailored suit. Beside him stood Marissa, freshly highlighted hair, expensive boots, the kind of woman who probably spent more time at brunch than in therapy. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. Her arm looped through his like she'd already won the prize. As the judge rattled off legal jargon about custody and financial agreements, my ears buzzed. I kept thinking, this is my life. This is really happening. My palms were sweating. My knees trembling. Then, right before we walked out, Travis leaned in. His voice low, smug, slicing like a blade across old bruises. "You'll regret this, Ness," he whispered. "No man's ever gonna love you the way I did. You'll never be happy again." It was the kind of line you only hear in movies. But there it was in real life, said by a man who once kissed my forehead every morning. And for a split second, I believed him. Because starting over at 34 felt like falling into a black hole. Because I had no savings, no steady job, and no clue how to be alone. Because I didn't know how to unlove someone who had been a part of my world for a decade. But mostly, because I had forgotten who I was before he told me who I should be. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I moved into a 2-bedroom rental with thin walls and peeling paint. I cried while folding laundry. I ate dinner standing up at the sink. Some nights, after Ava went to sleep, I would open our wedding album and stare at my old smile, wondering if that girl was still in there somewhere. Co-parenting with Travis was hell. He was inconsistent, manipulative, and always found a way to make me the villain. When he skipped a weekend, he told Ava it was because mommy made it hard. When I asked for child support, he said I was money hungry. And when Ava came home with stories about his new house, new car, and bonus mommy, I had to bite my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Still, I showed up. Every day. I showed up with peanut butter sandwiches cut into hearts, with bedtime stories and hair braids and notes in her lunchbox that said, "You are brave and loved." And every night, when I felt like collapsing, I told myself, "You survived him. Now build something better." Not just for Ava, but for me. Starting over didn't look like some grand reinvention. It wasn't glow-ups and girl power playlists and margaritas with friends like the movies promised. Starting over looked like waking up in the middle of the night panicking because I forgot to sign Ava's permission slip. It looked like eating leftover mac and cheese off her plate because groceries were tight. Like filling out job applications while Ava colored quietly next to me on the floor. Like laying in the dark after she fell asleep, just staring at the ceiling, wondering who I even was without Travis. I used to think that kind of loneliness only hit when someone died. But in a way, something had died, my identity. My marriage. The future I thought I had secured. There were moments I grieved it so hard, I couldn't breathe. But there were also sparks, tiny flickers of something that felt like me coming back. Like the day I pulled my old sketch pad out of a storage bin in the closet. I hadn't drawn in years. Travis used to mock my art. Said it was cute that I doodled, but asked if I really thought people got paid to play with markers. I stopped drawing not because I didn't love it, but because he made me feel stupid for loving it. That afternoon, I sketched for 2 hours while Ava napped. Just random things, flowers, a sun, a sketch of her with her wild curls. And when I finished, I looked at the page and I cried. Not out of sadness, but because it felt like I'd found a lost part of myself buried under all that silence. That's when the idea came, graphic design. It wasn't some lightning bolt. It was practical. I could use the creativity I missed. I could freelance, maybe work from home while raising Ava. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but when I thought about building a life with no permission from anyone else, no criticism, no cold sighs, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I enrolled in night classes at the local community college. I drop Ava off at my sister's place, sit in a room full of 20-somethings and take notes on color theory and software I'd never used before. I was the oldest student in every class. The only mom. The only woman with bags under her eyes and car seats in the back of her dented sedan. But I showed up. And little by little, it got better. I landed a part-time job at a print shop. It didn't pay much, but my boss was kind, and I could bring Ava on Saturdays when I couldn't find a sitter. I took on small freelance projects at night, logos for dog groomers, flyers for yoga studios. I built a tiny portfolio. I had no website, no marketing plan. Just grit and gratitude. A year passed. Travis barely noticed. He still picked Ava up late and sent petty text messages when he was bored. But I no longer cried after his calls. I stopped needing his approval, stopped fearing his judgment. Ava started drawing more, too. "I want to be an artist like Mommy," she said once, and it cracked my heart open in the best way. Then came Jonas. I met him at a cookout I almost didn't go to. My friend April insisted I get out of the house, but I had one of those mornings where nothing felt right. I'd spilled coffee on my shirt, my hair wouldn't cooperate, and I had that gnawing fear in my chest that I didn't belong anywhere. But I went anyway. He was there with his son, Micah. A quiet little boy who reminded me of Ava, shy, observant, too old for his age. Jonas had a warm smile, not the cocky kind that Travis wore like armor, but the gentle kind that made you feel instantly safe. He handed me a paper plate of ribs and grilled corn, then sat beside me and said, "You look like you had a long week. Want to tell me about it?" And for the first time in years, I felt seen. We didn't rush. We exchanged numbers. Texted a few times. Then one night, after I'd had a hard day and posted a moody meme about single parenting, he messaged, "You okay? I make a mean chicken pot pie if you ever need to talk." That was the beginning. Dinner dates after Ava went to sleep. Walks at the park while the kids rode scooters. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market where he bought me sunflowers without asking. He never pushed. Never made me feel like I owed him joy when I was still rebuilding it. He told me about his divorce. About how his ex moved out of state and he'd been raising Micah solo ever since. We connected through the tiredness of being both mom and dad, of feeling guilty for wanting a life outside our children. One night, as we sat on my couch watching Ava and Micah make sock puppets, Jonas leaned over and whispered, "You know, you laugh with your whole body. It's one of the best sounds I've ever heard." That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a rebound. This was healing. This was different. He didn't fix me. I wasn't broken. But he reminded me that I was allowed to feel good things again. That softness didn't make me weak. That love, real, kind, steady love, was still possible. By the time our 2-year anniversary came around, I had graduated with my certificate, started a small home-based design business, and decorated Ava's bedroom with fairy lights and framed prints of her artwork. We were stable. We were happy. And when Jonas got down on one knee in our living room, Ava filming the whole thing with her iPad, Micah hiding the ring in a cereal box, I didn't just say yes. I said thank you. Thank you for being patient with my trauma. Thank you for loving my daughter like your own. Thank you for helping me believe that my story didn't end in that courtroom. I used to daydream about this moment. Not the dress or the flowers or the music, but the peace. The feeling of standing somewhere beautiful, next to someone who loved me, and not being afraid of what came next. Jonas proposed on a Tuesday. Not exactly the day little girls dream about, but when you've lived through a marriage that broke you, the ordinary becomes sacred. His hands trembled when he opened the velvet box. I remember Ava gasping, "Oh my gosh, Mommy. Say yes already." While Micah held a handmade sign that said, "Will you be our forever?" I didn't cry that night, not right away. I just smiled so hard my cheeks hurt, and I hugged them all so tight I thought I might shatter. But later, alone in my room, I did cry. Not because I was unsure. Not because I missed Travis. But because I realized I was about to marry someone who chose me fully. Not just when I was convenient or pretty or smiling. Jonas had loved me through the messy rebuild, the chaos of single parenting, the nights when I doubted everything. And now, here I was, preparing for a second wedding I never imagined I deserve. We kept it simple. A small vineyard just outside Asheville. Wildflowers instead of roses. A short ceremony, close friends, and our kids standing beside us. I didn't want spectacle. I wanted sincerity. Wholeness. No lies to cover up cracks. No pretending for anyone else's comfort. But the truth is, I knew Travis would find out. Not because I wanted him to, but because he still stalked my social media under fake accounts. He couldn't help himself. He'd occasionally slip up and accidentally like a photo or send me snide messages about how Ava's clothes didn't match. He hadn't changed. He was still petty. Still bitter. Still convinced I'd never move on from him. So I didn't block him. Petty? Maybe. But part of me wanted him to see it. To witness the joy he swore I'd never have. The week before the wedding, he called. I don't know how he found out. Maybe through a friend. Maybe Ava said something, but the number popped up, and for the first time in over a year, I answered. He didn't even say hello. Just, "So, you're really going through with this?" I took a breath. "Yes, I am." He laughed. That same low, condescending laugh he used to use when I asked for help around the house. Guy must be desperate. Marrying someone with your baggage. And there it was. The old Travis. Small. Cruel. Empty. But I didn't bite. Instead, I said, "Jonas loves all of me. Baggage included. He doesn't see damage. He sees a woman who survived." That shut him up for a second. Then he hissed, "Don't think this makes you better. Everyone has a second act. Doesn't mean yours will last." I smiled. "Then I guess we'll see, won't we?" And I hung up. Something about that moment felt like a finish line. Not the wedding. Not the ring. Just the choice to not let him live in my head anymore. He no longer had keys to the home I rebuilt. And when the wedding day arrived, it was everything he said I'd never have. The sky was cloudless, soft Carolina blue. Ava wore a sunflower crown, and Micah handed Jonas the rings with a grin that could melt glaciers. My dress wasn't designer, it was a resale find, altered to fit a body that had given birth, battled anxiety, and healed from betrayal. When Jonas saw me walking down the aisle, he cried, unapologetically. The kind of tears that say, "I've been waiting for you." And as we exchanged vows, I wasn't thinking about Travis anymore. I was thinking about all the nights I stayed up with Ava alone. All the applications I submitted with shaking hands. All the mornings I made pancakes with cheap syrup and no hope in my heart. And how somehow those moments had led me here. The reception was laughter and barefoot dancing, messy cake, and sunset photos with a vineyard behind us. At one point, Ava and Micah gave a little toast with lemonade, thanking us for being the best parents ever. I swear, even the caterer cried. But later that night, once the guests had gone and the candles burned low, I posted the photos. I didn't tag anyone, didn't caption it with bitterness or quotes about karma. Just a soft image of Jonas kissing my forehead while Ava and Micah hugged our legs beneath a string of fairy lights. And I wrote, "It turns out happiness wasn't behind me, it was just waiting for me to believe I deserved it." That post blew up. Old college friends, distant cousins, co-workers I hadn't spoken to in years. They all commented, "You look so radiant. This gives me hope. Love always finds a way back." And somewhere in that silent swarm of likes and reposts, I know Travis saw it. Maybe he scrolled past it while sitting next to Marissa on their third breakup. Maybe he paused and zoomed in, trying to find a crack, a flaw, a trace of the woman he thought would fall apart. Or maybe he sat there in silence, realizing for the first time, he didn't break me. Revenge doesn't always come screaming. Sometimes it arrives with silence. With joy so loud it drowns out the voices that tried to tear you down. With peace so deep, the past has no claws left to hold you. For a long time, I thought closure would look like confrontation. Like standing in front of Travis, listing every bruise he left that no one could see. Every dig at my intelligence, every slammed door, every year I spent shrinking. I thought it would be loud and satisfying, like the final scene in a courtroom drama. But it wasn't. It was Sunday mornings in sweatpants, making waffles with Jonas while Ava and Micah argued over who got the last blueberry. It was sitting at my desk at 10 p.m., sending off a logo I designed for a women-owned business and getting back a message that read, "You really made me feel seen." It was the first time Ava said, "I want a love like yours and Jonas's." It was letting Travis fade out of focus, no longer a villain, just a shadow I'd outrun. But just when I thought I'd put the past completely behind me, he tried to claw his way back in. It started subtly. Travis requested to follow me on Instagram. I ignored it. Then he began texting. Not angry this time, friendly. "Just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." Ava mentioned the wedding. "Looked nice. Did you see the article I wrote? Just got promoted." The nerve. After 3 years of radio silence, unless it was about child support or drop-off times, he suddenly remembered I existed the moment I became something he never expected, happy without him. It wasn't about love. Not even about Ava. It was about control. He lost it, and he couldn't stand it. Jonas noticed. One night, after dinner, we sat on the porch, kids asleep, and I showed him the latest message. Jonas didn't get jealous. He wasn't insecure. But he knew manipulation when he saw it. He placed his hand on mine and said, "You don't owe him a response. He wants a reaction, any kind. That's how people like him stay relevant." And I nodded. Because he was right. And I was done. So, I did what scared me for years. I blocked Travis on everything except the court-approved parenting app. That was our only channel from then on. No small talk. No guilt trips. Just co-parenting logistics. And you know what happened? Nothing. No storm. No meltdown. Just quiet. Because once you stop feeding someone your energy, they shrivel. They become what they always were underneath the noise, powerless. And in that silence, my life bloomed louder than ever. Jonas and I built something steady. We bought a little craftsman house with creaky floors and too many dandelions in the yard. Ava decorated her new room with purple stars and glittery quotes about bravery. Micah took up photography and started capturing moments around the house, me and Jonas in the kitchen, Ava reading to her stuffed animals. I framed one of the photos. Jonas spinning me in the backyard under a string of lights, my head thrown back in laughter. It hangs in our living room. My business took off. One client turned into 10. A local magazine featured me as a mompreneur to watch. I wasn't rich, not in the way Travis flaunted in our divorce, but I was rich in time, in purpose, in love. And no one could take that from me. One afternoon, I bumped into a woman I hadn't seen since the Travis days. She used to work with us back when he'd parade me around the office like his trophy wife. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Vanessa?" She blinked. "I almost didn't recognize you. You look happy." And I smiled. Not the tight, polite kind I used to force when I was barely surviving, but the full smile of someone who lived through the fire and came out glowing. "Yeah," I said. "I really am." Before she left, she asked the question I knew was coming. "So, whatever happened to Travis?" I shrugged. I wouldn't know. And it wasn't a lie. I hadn't looked him up. I didn't follow him. I didn't care. Because that's the thing about real revenge. It's not slamming the door. It's not the big, dramatic moment. It's not proving them wrong to their face. It's proving them irrelevant to your life. It's building a world so beautiful, they no longer exist in it. 1 year later, Jonas and I celebrated our first wedding anniversary. Ava made us a homemade card with a drawing of our whole family standing in front of the house, hearts in the sky. The words "happily ever after" scrawled across the bottom. Jonas gave me a necklace with 3 charms, an A, an M, and a tiny paint palette. "Because you brought all of us back to life," he said. And I knew then, with every fiber of my being, Travis was wrong. I didn't just find happiness. I created it. I didn't just rebuild my life. I reimagined it. And the best part? I didn't need his validation, his approval, or his silence. I needed me. Final caption, I shared online. The sweetest revenge isn't anger, it's joy. It's healing out loud. It's building the life they swore you'd never have and making it look effortless. And with that, I finally let the past go. For good. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Your support means everything. If this story touched you or made you think, please subscribe to our channel for more real, powerful stories.